At a certain point in life, something happens that almost no one prepares you for. It's not a crisis you can point to. It's not one dramatic event. It's quieter than that, more frightening than that. You wake up one day and realize that you're done. Not just tired from work or from people or from a busy week. You are tired of everything. The shows you used to binge barely hold your attention. The music you once played on repeat becomes background noise. The hobbies that used to feel like your entire personality now feel oddly distant, like you're watching someone else live your life. You might look at your own hands making coffee and think, who is this? How did I end up here? And why does nothing move me anymore? Naturally, this terrifies you. You think, something is wrong with me. I must be broken. Maybe I'm depressed. Maybe I've finally lost whatever spark I had. But what if this state you're in, this numb, flat, exhausted place, is not the end of something? What if, in the language of Carl Jung, it's the beginning of a very different life? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. First, let's be clear. There are times when tired of everything is a symptom of real clinical depression, of burnout, of trauma, of a nervous system that needs medical and professional help. If your exhaustion is accompanied by thoughts of harming yourself, by complete loss of function, by a darkness that feels dangerous, please don't use a video as your only medicine. Reach out to someone qualified. Your pain is real enough to deserve that care. But there is another kind of tiredness, one that Jung would have recognized as a psychological turning point. It's not just your energy that's gone, it's your interest in the things that used to keep you going. The story you were living in has lost its flavor. The character you were playing no longer feels believable. You find yourself in a strange in-between zone, still here, still functioning, but inwardly done. This is the kind of fatigue I want to talk about. The one that makes you say, I'm not just tired, I'm tired of myself, tired of my life as it is, tired of pretending this is enough. Jung noticed something curious about the psyche. He saw that whenever we live in a way that is too narrow, too artificial, too far from our deeper nature, the soul begins to withdraw its energy from that way of living. At first, this might show up as boredom, then as restlessness, then as a low-grade anxiety that follows you everywhere. If you ignore all of that long enough, something more drastic happens. The energy simply stops cooperating. The things that once fired you up no longer do anything. You can still go through the motions, but the life has gone out of them. From the outside, it looks like you've become dull, lazy, unmotivated. From the inside, it feels like you can't force yourself to care. Most people interpret this as failure. They think, I've lost my passion, I've lost my ambition, I used to be driven, I used to be hungry. What happened to me? But Jung might say, nothing went wrong. What's happening is that your old motivations have worn out. The ego, the part of you that chases goals, seeks approval, wants to fit in, has reached the limit of how long it can keep you running on the same script. Your soul refuses to keep playing along. There's a concept in Jung's work called the persona. It's the mask you wear in the world. The version of you that knows how to say the right things, act the right way, fit into the expectations of your culture, your family, your profession, the reliable one, the funny one, the smart one, the competent one, the one who has it together. For a long time, this persona can work beautifully. You get praise, you get opportunities, you get invited into rooms you've always wanted to be in. But the persona has a secret cost. Every time you say yes when you mean no, the mask gets heavier. Every time you laugh along when something hurts you, the mask gets tighter. Every time you pretend you're fine when you're not, the mask grows thicker. Imagine being an actor in a play that never ends. Every night you put on the same costume, the same makeup, and you walk onto the same stage, delivering the same lines to the same applause. At first, it's exciting, then it's respectable, then it's tolerable, then one night you're backstage holding the mask in your hands, and your arms simply drop. You cannot make yourself put it on again. You walk onto the stage anyway, barefaced, and discover something terrifying. No one recognizes you. They're waiting for the character. They're looking for your mask. This is what it's like when you become tired of everything. The persona that used to work for you has become incompatible with who you actually are, but you don't yet know who that is. So you're stuck between two lives, the one that no longer fits and the one that hasn't yet appeared. If the persona is the mask you show the world, the shadow is everything you hide. Not just your bad traits, but often your most vulnerable needs. The part of you that is hurt and angry. The part of you that longs to be taken care of. The part that is jealous, needy, frightened, ashamed. The part that wants attention, rest, softness, love. Most of us were trained very early to keep these parts in the dark. We were praised for being strong, independent, unfazed. We were admired for being the mature one, the rock, the one who doesn't cause trouble. So we kept sending pieces of ourselves into exile. The child who cried too loudly, the teenager who wanted too much, the adult who secretly can't handle one more thing. We locked them away in the basement of our psyche and went upstairs to keep being fine. The problem is that nothing in that basement disappears. It gathers, it waits. And one day, after years of swallowing your anger, your grief, your exhaustion, your shadow decides that being ignored is no longer acceptable. But it doesn't always erupt in rage or breakdown. Sometimes it does something quieter. It takes away your joy. The things that used to distract you from yourself no longer work. The entertainment, the busyness, the constant doing, none of it relieves the pressure anymore. You say, "I'm tired of everything." But often what you're really tired of is being split in half. You're tired of trying to live as only the acceptable parts of yourself while dragging the rest of you like dead weight behind you. Fighting yourself is the most exhausting job in the world. I once heard the story of a man who was always the calm one. At work, he was the mediator. At home, he was the quiet, steady presence. He never raised his voice, never complained. Everyone praised him. "You're so patient. You're so good with people. You're so easygoing." But inside, he had a lifetime of swallowed anger. Moments when he wanted to say, "That's not fair." Times he needed someone to show up for him, and no one did. He didn't allow himself to feel any of it. He thought it was no big deal. Until one evening, driving home, he suddenly pulled over to the side of the road. His hands were shaking, his chest felt hollow. He wasn't crying, he wasn't shouting, he just felt empty. Done. Not because life was objectively terrible, but because the self he had buried could no longer fuel the life he was living. Let's talk about another layer of exhaustion Jung would recognize. Control. There is a kind of tired that comes from constantly trying to hold everything together, trying to make sure no one is upset, trying to avoid every mistake, trying to predict every possible outcome, trying to manage how people see you, trying to be on top of everything all the time. You become the project manager of life itself. And life, if you haven't noticed, does not follow project plans. In Greek mythology, there's the figure of Sisyphus condemned to push a boulder up a hill, only to have it roll back down every time he nears the top. He repeats this forever. Jung would say many modern people live like psychological Sisyphus. We keep pushing the boulder of control. If I just try harder, everything will finally be okay. If I can just get this right, people will stop leaving. If I just fix myself enough, I'll finally deserve rest. And the rock keeps rolling back down. Another crisis, another problem, another thing to handle. We don't realize it's not the weight of life that's exhausting us. It's the belief that we're supposed to carry all of it alone. So your nervous system never gets to relax. You're always on alert. Even when you sit down, your mind is still running simulations of the future. No wonder you're tired of everything. You've been doing the job of an entire universe by yourself. Take a breath with me right now, just once. No performance, just a pause. Because at some point, the psyche does something wise. When you refuse to rest, it makes you collapse, not to punish you, but to stop you from pushing the boulder forever. Much of ordinary life is built on a very simple game. Chase what feels good. Avoid what feels bad. We call this pursuing happiness. We call it following our bliss. But if you look honestly, a lot of what we call pleasure is really just temporary relief from a tension we created. You push yourself until you're exhausted, then you call the weekend joy. You starve yourself of rest, then call one day off heaven. You tolerate relationships that hurt you, then call one sweet text proof they care. We create hunger in order to feel the satisfaction of eating. We create emptiness in order to feel the thrill of filling it. It's not that these pleasures are fake, it's that they're unstable. You always have to recreate the problem in order to feel the cure. At some point, for some people, this game stops working. You see through it, not just intellectually, but in your bones. You notice that so many of your so-called joys are actually just ways of not being present with yourself. You realize that your social life is often an escape from silence. Your productivity is often an escape from feeling. Your romantic drama is often an escape from emptiness. And once this insight lands, the old pleasures lose their flavor. You can't unknow what you now know. You can't fully enjoy the distraction when you see the cost so clearly. So everything goes flat. It feels like death. In a way it is, but it's the death of the game, not the death of you. Here's a mistake almost everyone makes when they're this tired. They start asking huge questions. What is my purpose? What is the meaning of life? Should I leave everything and start over? Those questions are not bad, but when you're exhausted, they're too big. They don't lift you, they crush you. Jung once said something along the lines of, "The least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest of things without it." In other words, when you're tired of everything, you don't need a massive, dramatic purpose. You need small anchors of meaning, tiny things that remind you, I'm here, I'm alive, I still exist. Think about moments like the feeling of warm water on your hands when you wash dishes, the sound of rain on the window, the way sunlight hits the floor at a certain hour. These sound so small compared to what is my destiny, but your soul doesn't heal in epic speeches, it heals in quiet presence. When everything feels too much, your job is not to solve your life. Your job is to come back to one small, real experience in this moment. Jung often spoke of something called individuation, the process of becoming the person you truly are, rather than the one the world told you to be. People like to imagine individuation as a heroic journey, visions, insights, breakthroughs, a new sense of purpose. But there is a much less glamorous part no one advertises, the gap, the long, uncomfortable period where the old life doesn't work and the new life hasn't arrived, when your old pleasures no longer satisfy you, but deeper joys haven't yet rooted, when old beliefs feel false, but no new certainty has replaced them, when you're done with pretending but you don't yet know how to live honestly, without blowing up your life. This gap can feel like waking up in a city you no longer love, in a job you no longer believe in, with people you can no longer fool. Looking around your own home and thinking, whose life is this? Sitting in front of things you used to enjoy and feeling nothing. It's tempting in this gap to panic, to grab onto any sensation that feels like the old you, a new obsession, a new crush, a new project, a new identity to chase, anything to avoid the empty space. But Jung would say the gap is not a malfunction, it's the cocoon. The caterpillar cannot become a butterfly while still doing caterpillar things. It dissolves, it becomes unrecognizable mush before anything with wings appears. Emptiness is a terrifying word for most of us. We hear emptiness and we think meaninglessness, nihilism, deadness. We equate not feeling excitement with not being alive. But from a psychological and even spiritual perspective, emptiness can mean something else: space. Space where old compulsions no longer automatically run you. Space where you're no longer driven by the same old anxieties. Space where you're not yet filled up with the next distraction. Think of a field after harvest. For a while it looks barren. The bright green is gone. The stalks have been cut down. The land looks empty. But that absence of crops is not a sign that the earth has died. It's a necessary season, a time for the soil to restore itself, to gather strength, to metabolize what came before. If you demand flowers from a field in winter, you will be cruel to that field. You will accuse it of failure when it is simply resting. When you are tired of everything, you are in a kind of inner winter. The flowers of excitement, passion, motivation, drama, they are not blooming. You can't force them without doing violence to yourself. This doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means what's happening is mostly underground. Your unconscious is rearranging roots, loosening hard-packed beliefs, decomposing old identities into new nutrients. You do not see it yet. You are not meant to. The natural question is, okay, fine, now maybe this is a transition, but what am I supposed to do in the meantime? The answer is both unsatisfying and profoundly kind. You do very little. You stop waging war on your own state. You stop trying to force yourself into old shapes. You stop treating your exhaustion like an enemy to defeat. You don't need to fix your mindset. You don't need to force yourself to be positive. You're tired. Let's work with that, not against it. If you can, gently place one hand on your chest right now. If you're in public, you can just rest your hand on your leg and imagine the same thing. We're going to do 3 small steps. Step 1, name your tiredness honestly. Whisper this out loud if you can, or just in your mind, I am so tired. No judgment, just truth. Feel how strange and relieving it is to admit it. You don't have to perform strength here. Step 2, let your unconscious speak. Jung believed that deeper parts of us speak in images and feelings, not just words. Ask quietly inside, what am I really tired of? Not what should I be tired of? Not what's the polite answer, but what actually comes up. Maybe it's, I'm tired of always being the one who understands. I'm tired of not being chosen. I'm tired of pretending this job still matters to me. I'm tired of acting like I don't need anyone. Whatever comes up, don't argue with it. Just notice it, like you're sitting next to a friend who's finally telling you the truth. Step 3. Say to yourself, you're allowed to feel this. That's it. No action item. No, now I must change my whole life. Just a tiny moment of inner permission. This may sound too simple, but most of our exhaustion comes from fighting our own reality. When you stop fighting yourself, even for 10 seconds, your nervous system gets a signal. It's safe to soften. There is a question that might help reframe what's happening to you. Instead of asking, why can't I enjoy anything anymore? Ask, What if I have simply outgrown the kind of joy I used to chase? A child is thrilled by a toy that an adult finds boring. Not because joy has died, but because their capacity has changed. A teenager is electrified by certain dramas that an older person no longer has the energy for. Not because their heart has turned to stone, but because their perspective has widened. Similarly, there comes a point in some lives when the usual pleasures, status, validation, peaks of excitement, no longer satisfy in the same way. You see through them. You see their cycle. You see their cost. It's not that you are too good for them, it's that you have become too conscious for them to fully sedate you. Your system is saying, we need a different quality of life now, not louder, not faster, not more intense, deeper, truer, simpler. But because you don't yet know what that looks like, the first experience is just loss. Loss of the old highs, loss of the old rush, loss of the old distractions. Think of it this way. If you've been living on sugar, real food will taste bland at first. Your tongue has to relearn subtlety. In the same way, when you've been living on emotional sugar, constant stimulation, constant goals, constant drama, real life will feel flat at first. Your soul has to relearn how to taste quiet. At some point in this process, and it might be months or years, not days, something subtle begins to appear. It's not fireworks, it's not a new passion, it's not a sudden revelation that fixes everything. It's more like a faint, steady hum underneath everything. You're sitting alone in your room and realize, I don't feel great, but I also don't feel like I'm disappearing. You're walking outside, and for one moment, the way the light falls on a wall makes you stop. Not in ecstasy, not in grand inspiration, just in a small, quiet recognition. This is, okay, I am here. Life is happening. This is not the old joy. It doesn't come with a high. It doesn't spike your dopamine. It doesn't make you want to post about it. It's closer to what you might call basic okayness, a sense that you can exist without constantly performing for anyone. You can breathe without constantly chasing the next hit of meaning. You are allowed to be alive even when you are not excited. This is the beginning of what some traditions call peace. Not the dramatic, ecstatic peace of a spiritual experience, just the quiet permission to be as you are without constantly needing to be entertained, impressed, or distracted from yourself. Now comes the part most people don't want to hear. You cannot force this shift to happen. You cannot perform your way into it. You cannot turn accepting your state into a new self-improvement project. Every time you think, okay, if I surrender hard enough, maybe I'll finally feel better, you're still bargaining. You're still trying to get out of where you are instead of actually being there. The psyche does not respond well to being tricked. Surrender is not a technique. It's what's left when all your techniques have failed. So what can you do? You can stop picking the wound. You can stop rehearsing the story of how broken you are. You can stop comparing your current muted state to old highlight reels in your memory. You do what needs to be done. You notice the tiny moments that are not unbearable. You rest when you can. Not to earn a reward, not to accelerate the process, just because that is the sanest way to live with what is actually here. If you're still listening, your mind is probably tired too. So let's make something simple together. A sentence you can carry with you when the wave of "I'm tired of everything" hits. Take a breath. If it's comfortable, close your eyes for a moment. Let the sentence form slowly in your mind as you hear it. I don't have to love this moment. I only have to let it exist. This doesn't sound like much, but psychologically it's enormous. You're stepping out of the role of judge and into the role of witness. You're no longer saying, You must be different right now. You're saying, you may be what you are, and I will still be here. If this sentence feels even slightly relieving, keep it. Say it when you open your eyes in the morning. Say it when you feel that wave of, what's the point, wash over you. Say it while you're brushing your teeth or scrolling or lying awake at night. You don't have to make the moment beautiful. You just have to stop declaring war on it. One of the cruelest thoughts that comes with this kind of exhaustion is, everyone else is moving on. Everyone else is building things, loving things, wanting things. I'm stuck. I'm falling behind. But from a Jungian perspective, that's not what's happening at all. On the surface, it might look like nothing is progressing. No big moves, no big dreams, no shiny milestones. But underneath, you are doing some of the hardest psychological work a human being can do. You are learning to live without constant self-distraction. You are learning to stay with yourself when there is no excitement as a reward. You are discovering who you are when you strip away roles, projects, performances, and highs. Most people never do this. They die still running from themselves. So you are not behind, you are deep. Deep in the cocoon, deep in the winter field, deep in the backstage area where the mask is finally too heavy to wear. You won't get a certificate for this, no one will clap. You may not even look very impressive from the outside, but somewhere in the quiet, something is being built that can survive more than just the next high, a self that can be with its own life. Not only when it is thrilling, but when it is ordinary, difficult, muted, strange. It's not an accident that you're hearing this now. Whether you think of it as coincidence, synchronicity, or just the strange timing of the internet, there's something meaningful about this. You, in a season where you're tired of everything, listening to words that are not trying to fix you, but to recognize you. Jung believed that when something needs to change in the psyche, life will find ways, dreams, symbols, chance encounters, to bring that need to your awareness. Maybe this video is one of those ways, not a solution, not a cure, just a quiet message from somewhere deeper in you saying, nothing is wrong with you for feeling like this. You are not broken. You are between stories. And even here, especially here, you are still held by something larger than your current mood. If there was a moment in this video where something inside you softened, even for a second, a breath that went a little deeper, a thought that loosened its grip, a tiny maybe where there used to be only never. Notice that. You don't have to cling to it. Just acknowledge, some part of me is still able to respond. I am not completely numb. There is still life here. That is enough for today. You might be waiting for the big final message, the sentence that changes everything. But maybe the most honest thing I can say is this. After this video ends, your life will probably look the same. The same room, the same job, the same body, the same unanswered questions. And yet something small and invisible might be different. You may be a little less convinced that your exhaustion means you have failed. You may be a little more willing to see this state as a passage instead of a verdict. You may be a tiny bit more gentle with yourself when the wave of "I'm tired of everything" comes back. That is enough. Carl Jung once wrote about the privilege of becoming who you truly are. He did not say it would be comfortable. He did not say it would look heroic. Sometimes becoming who you are looks exactly like this. Losing interest in everything that used to keep you asleep. Sitting in a life that doesn't fit anymore. Feeling like you're made of fog with no idea what comes next. It is not glamorous. It is not Instagrammable. But it is real work. So, when you find yourself thinking, I'm tired of everything, what's the point? Maybe you can add one more sentence. And maybe this is not the end of my story. Maybe this is the chapter where the old structures collapse so something truer can be born. You don't have to believe it fully. You just have to leave a little room for it to be possible. Take one more breath. Feel it enter and leave your body. You are still here, even in this, especially in this. And that fact alone, that you are still here, listening, breathing, existing, is more than nothing. It is the quiet beginning of a different way of being alive. If you ever need to hear this again, come back. Not because you need more content, but because sometimes you need a voice that doesn't demand you be okay, that doesn't insist you feel grateful, that doesn't push you to hustle out of your own winter. When you're tired of everything, you haven't reached the edge of life. You've reached the edge of a certain way of living. And beyond that edge, quietly, slowly, without your control, something else is waiting. Not excitement, not endless happiness, something steadier, something more honest, something that was here all along, underneath all the noise, yourself.